As of May 2025, the global debt has surged to an astonishing $318 trillion. That figure is almost unfathomable, larger than the combined economic output of every nation on Earth by a wide margin. Meanwhile, as of April 17th, the total U.S. national debt alone stands at $36.22 trillion. These are not just abstract numbers floating somewhere in financial markets. They represent real obligations, promises, and burdens. But here's the pressing question. All this debt in the world, who exactly owes it and to whom? First, it's important that we understand just how massive these sums are. This economics video will break down the figures in a way that helps us fully grasp the gravity of the situation.
Let's break it down. If you watching, made $1 every second, you'd become a millionaire in just 12 days. That's less than 2 weeks. Sounds fast, right? But now, what about $1 billion? Would it take 6 months? A year? Try over 31 years. And that's earning $1 every second, non-stop, 24/7. And that's just $1 billion. Now imagine reaching $1 trillion at that same pace. Ready for this? It would take you over 31,000 years. Yeah, 31,000 years. Earning $1 every single second, day and night without ever stopping. And now multiply that by 36. That's how long it would take to reach the current U.S. national debt. Over 1.1 million years at $1 per second.
On the surface, it may seem straightforward. Governments borrow from investors through bonds, corporations borrow from banks or issue corporate bonds. Households borrow through mortgages, car loans, credit cards, and student loans. Yet when you zoom out to the global scale, the picture becomes much more tangled. If the world collectively owes $318 trillion, who is the creditor? Is there some enormous external lender? Of course not. There's no extraterrestrial bank floating above Earth holding IOUs. Rather, the world owes this debt to itself. Every liability, someone's debt, is also an asset, someone else's investment. But this self-contained cycle raises further, deeper questions. Could all this spiraling debt be pushing humanity toward a future system of global economic control, as described in biblical prophecy? Now I have a question to ask you. Could it be that all this world debt is moving us closer to Revelation 13? Revelation 13 describes a dark moment in human history, a time of unprecedented global control. The Antichrist, working through the second beast, who is known as the false prophet, will establish a system where no one can buy or sell unless they bear the mark of the beast. This isn't just religious symbolism, it's a form of economic coercion. Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 17. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. We spend so much time focusing on the deception. And yes, there will be an overwhelming flood of lies, false signs, and spiritual delusion. But we must not overlook that the Antichrist system will also wield economic coercion on a scale the world has never witnessed. Notice that the defining feature of this end-time system is not just spiritual influence, but commerce, the very ability to function in daily economic life. This system is not merely about convincing people to worship through deception or persuasion. It is about applying raw, crushing power. Survival itself, access to food, clean water, employment, medicine, and the basic necessities of life, will depend on compliance with the demands of the Antichrist system. This is a level of control that cuts straight to the human need to live, reducing people to a choice between allegiance to the beast or being cut off from the ability to provide for themselves and their families. It is not just a battle for minds. It's a battle for survival, and the pressure will be relentless. Think about it. If the entire world is swimming in debt, who ultimately controls the system? And what happens when the weight of this debt becomes unbearable? Let's look closer at the numbers. Joe Biden was president from 2021 to 2025. The Biden administration has added roughly $6.2 trillion to the national debt over 4 years. Driven by pandemic recovery measures, infrastructure bills, climate initiatives, rising healthcare costs, and ballooning interest payments on past debt. Donald Trump was president from 2017 to 2021. In his first term, Trump added approximately $7.8 trillion to the debt, fueled by the 2017 tax cuts, increases in defense spending, pandemic stimulus, and entitlement programs. Barack Obama was president from 2009 to 2017. Obama's 2 terms saw the debt rise by around $8.6 trillion, largely due to the Great Recession recovery measures, the Affordable Care Act, bailouts, and ongoing military commitments. George W. Bush was president from 2001 to 2009. Bush added about $5.8 trillion, with key drivers including tax cuts, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and new domestic programs like Medicare Part D. Every administration has stacked more and more debt onto the pile, and the trend shows no sign of stopping. And again, the question, in debt to whom? In the global system, governments owe money primarily to domestic holders, banks, pension funds, citizens. Foreign governments and investors, such as China, Japan, EU nations. International organizations, IMF, World Bank. Private institutions and sovereign wealth funds. Corporations owe money to banks, investors, and bondholders. Households owe money to financial institutions. But ultimately, these webs of debt are intertwined across national borders, tying the whole world into one enormous financial system. This is where the warning of Revelation 13 resonates so deeply. What if the world's economic system becomes so interdependent, so fragile, and so overloaded with debt that it creates the perfect environment for a central figure or system to seize control? In Revelation, the Antichrist system doesn't control the world merely through military. It controls the world through economic pressure. Buying and selling, trade and survival are weaponized to enforce allegiance. Without the mark, you cannot participate. Without participation, you cannot survive. Could the world's spiraling debt be laying the groundwork for such a system? Consider how modern financial technologies, like digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are reshaping commerce. These systems can be programmed, monitored, and even shut off. Governments and financial institutions can already track, freeze, or redirect funds. Now combine that with a world drowning in debt, where governments may seek global financial solutions or frameworks to manage the debt crisis. A worldwide agreement to reset debts or consolidate financial controls under a unified system would provide unprecedented leverage to any entity strong enough to oversee it. This is no longer the stuff of conspiracy theories. It is a scenario financial experts, central banks, and global leaders openly discuss. The World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, and other international bodies have long debated the future of global debt and the potential need for coordinated action. Phrases like the Great Reset have entered popular discourse, signaling the idea that the old systems are breaking and that something new must emerge. But biblically, we know the ultimate form this will take: coerced economic allegiance to a figure of rebellion against God. Let me press this point further. Every time a nation adds more debt, it hands over more of its future flexibility, more of its control to the debt holders. In ancient times, Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 warned us, "The borrower is servant to the lender." This principle hasn't changed, it's just become global. Whether it's households trapped in credit card debt, nations tied to foreign loans, or corporations enslaved to financial markets, the debt binds. And it's not just a matter of numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a matter of influence, leverage, and power. When you owe, you must listen. When you borrow, you must yield. Nations that owe billions or trillions are forced to prioritize debt payments over social programs, infrastructure, or even military spending. Citizens under personal debt must structure their lives around repayments, sacrificing dreams or necessities to meet obligations. Corporations deep in debt must answer to shareholders, creditors, and financial markets, often making decisions not based on what's best for workers or communities, but on what will satisfy those who hold their debts. The deeper the world sinks into this interconnected web of obligations, the more fragile its independence becomes. And the easier it is for centralized power to exploit that vulnerability. And the bigger the debt, the stronger the bind. Debt, at its core, is a promise that future labor, resources, or taxes will be handed over to repay today's consumption. When promises are broken, financial crises erupt. But when promises are kept, those who hold the debt wield quiet power. Quiet, that is, until someone finds a way to consolidate and weaponize it. Imagine a global debt reset, a solution offered to nations staggering under $318 trillion in obligations. Imagine a charismatic leader proposing a financial salvation package with strings attached: compliance, loyalty, submission. Could that be the framework by which Revelation 13 unfolds? Possibly. I am preaching this sermon to get you to think, to ask questions. Does this make sense? Does this add up? Take note. The global debt to GDP ratio now stands above 328%. Emerging markets, once seen as growth engines, are now among the largest contributors to rising debt. China, India, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey have surged in their debt levels, while in developed nations, the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Sweden continue to pile on obligations. Interest costs alone are devouring budgets. In the U.S., servicing the national debt consumes nearly $1 trillion per year, roughly equal to the entire defense budget. And this figure is set to rise as interest rates increase, making it even more costly to borrow and forcing governments to issue new debt just to pay off old debt. This cycle, where borrowing funds debt service, which then requires more borrowing, creates what some economists call a debt doom loop. It's a loop that cannot be broken without drastic action, whether through austerity, deep spending cuts, tax increases, or, perhaps most dangerously, radical monetary solutions. As believers, we need to remember that Scripture has warned us that the end times will include global systems of control. Revelation 13 is clear. The Antichrist and the false prophet will build an order where commerce, identity, and allegiance are merged. You will not be able to buy or sell without giving yourself over to the beast. This is why the financial dimensions of prophecy matter. It's not just about geopolitics or military alliances. It's about the systems of trade, debt, and economic leverage that shape nations and peoples. When financial systems collapse or tighten, people grow desperate. And desperate populations are easier to control.